Put your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now! Here comes the jam. Getting down with the truth. The only way he knows how to. Girls all up with his name. We call him the chief. You're damn right. He's gonna get that sucker. Yo, track down the truth. You know what a track down the truth. You know and what they call him. We call him the chief. You're damn right we do.
I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. You can find us every Tuesday at 8 a.m., and we do movie reviews. Crime-related movies, cop-related movies with retired law enforcement. And, you know, if you are watching us on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching us on Rumble, follow us on Rumble, and do me a favor. You know, Rumble, we're building up an audience there, so I really need you to follow us and like the show there and share it with a friend. So YouTube kind of they have their own rules sometimes, so building up an alternate channel on Rumble is actually very important. So hey, I also have a show. It's called Briefing with the Chief, where I do serious commentary. Also, that's on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You know, and that is also a radio show. So it's broadcast on Rumble, so you can watch the podcast on Rumble at that time, but you can also listen to the show live on KJIDB.com at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, you know, this week I have a local coming on, a local from California, CC Woods. We're going to go over a lot of the drama that's going on in LA these days. I've been covering so many things around the country that we just had a lot of stuff going on in LA and that we really need to focus on. I probably will touch on the riots that nobody wants to admit were riots. Yeah, it's only 5 blocks, but it's still a riot. You know, it's just not as widespread as the LA riots in 1992. So the politicians are crazy. Oh no, it's really not a riot. Well, it is a riot. It's just a riot that you say that we can handle. We can handle it with the resources we have. That's how you're supposed to say it. Saying it's not a riot is stupid, but they do that, and we'll cover that. I'll cover some of that tomorrow. And good morning, Gambit. Good morning, Penny. Thank you for dropping in on the show. Also, hey, I got to give you a heads. You can find me on X as well. I do post about a wide variety of issues, and I was given commentary on X. They have these things called Spaces, and I drop in them every now and then. I use my real name and my former title, so I'm always brought to the top to give commentary on law enforcement-related stuff. And I'm at LSD Jordan on X. So do me a favor, go to my X account and follow me there. And if you see me speaking on some of the spaces, jump in and listen, you know, and certainly make some comments on my X. Now, I have to tell you, you can tell that the liberals are back on X. Now, when I first started on X, here we go. Let's see. The DC riots in 1991 were confined to just 3 neighborhoods, but they were still riots. Yeah, absolutely right, Ralph. Oh, it's driving me crazy that these politicians out here are saying it. But you know, hey, we thankfully to the media, they have to show the violence score and say that, oh, it's mostly peaceful. But then they show all the violence, and of course, everybody goes, "What is going on in LA?" Now I lost track of what I was talking about. So hey, The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is the LA Mission. It is a nonprofit that actually does the job, that has been working in LA since 1985. I'm on the board of the LA Mission. I got an event tomorrow night I got to go to, and then we're going to have a retreat here in a couple weeks where we look at where we're at now at the LA Mission and put together an operational plan for the next year. Just, you know, what do they call those planetary planning meeting. So that's what's going on this week. And I want to encourage you to go to the losangelesmission.org and take a look at their webpage. We do about 400,000 meals Probably, I think that's a month. It's not, maybe it's a year, but we also do, we meet the needs of the homeless on the streets. We provide them beds, some basic sleeping arrangements and shower arrangements. But it's always it's a way of getting them into the door so that we get them into wraparound services. We look for those that are ready to get off the streets, and they get either 6 months to 12 months of wraparound services to recover from their alcoholism, their drug addiction, and deal with their mental illness or other physical ailments. And the goal is just to reintegrate them back into society, make them healthy members and productive members of society, help them recover and be there when they fall down a little bit, and just help them out. But go to losangelesmission.org. It is faith-based. That's right. They make the sign of the cross there, and so government doesn't give them any money, so they need your help. Just make a small donation today. Okay, hey, so today's show, we're going to do. I did a movie that I had not seen before. I just said, let me pick out a movie in the 2000s that I hadn't seen before, with some interesting characters. And you know what? I found The Way of the Gun is it's a movie that was released in 2000. It's a neo-western heist action thriller film, and it was directed by the director who did The Usual Suspects. I really liked, Unusual Suspect, I think it is. I really liked that movie with. And so I said, okay, well, let me try this one here. And it's the Christopher McQuarrie is the name of the director, and he also kind of wrote it, inspired a little about by Benicio del Toro, encouraged him to do it. Didn't get a lot of studio support, and he really wanted to do it, but he managed to get it done. And I said, well, let's do this movie. It's got a lot of interesting characters and twists and turns in it. So I got a couple of retired law enforcement guys that are to come on and help me with this show. I guess we'll go in rank order as we introduce these guys. We got the retired Chief Ralph Ornelas from the Westminster Police Department, also Commander from the LESD. Hey, Ralph, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Pat? Great to see you, and looking forward to seeing the other guest when he comes on the screen after you introduce him.
Okay, and we got retired Sergeant Danny Coon, been on before, and retired from the LA County Sheriff's Department. Normally we bring him on when we're doing serial killer movies, but this time we'll just do a basic shoot 'em up movie with Danny Coon. Where are you at, Danny? Uh-oh, I think we'll have to see what happened to Danny. He must have had some. There he
There
is.
we go.
Okay,
How you
how you
doing?
doing?
Good to see you, Pat. Good to see you, Ralph. And you said the serial killer movies. I also do suicide movies, and this movie did have a suicide scene in it, or suicide ideation scene in it, I should say.
Well, yeah, that's right. So, hey, well, let's you got Bulletproof. You got on your little under your name there. You want to give a shout out for the organization that you or the stuff you're doing, Danny.
I study and talk about post-traumatic stress and suicide ideation and other wellness issues in the first responder community, especially the law enforcement community. I also wrote a book called Broken, Understanding the Effects of Post-Traumatic Stress, Post-Traumatic Stress. And I run a website called bulletprooffirstresponder.com, one word. And it's, I post almost monthly different articles and blogs and information about law enforcement and firefighter medic suicides.
Okay. Now, I've had both of these guys on my other show, Briefing with the Chief. Obviously, I've had Danny on a couple times where we talked about post-traumatic stress disorder and suicides, cop suicides, but actually it's first responder suicides because they all suffer from many of the same issues. And I recently had Ralph on, which was a good show. It was well received because I got I got a fair amount of comments on. We did who is MS-13, and Ralph is an expert. Chief Ornelas is an expert in MS-13, and all this drama about Kilmar Abrigo Garcia. Well, who is MS-13? That's what I think the public needed to know, and that's why we did that show. So when they think of Kilmar Abrigo Garcia, he's now back to be prosecuted from El Salvador. When they say this is what MS-13 is, go listen to my show. You'll see just how vicious and cruel they can be, and this is why we need those guys out of our country, right? So, yeah, Ralph, you want to add to that, or?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank you, Pat, for that interview that day because it's a passion of mine about MS-13 and working with down there with federal agencies. But I also want to make a comment about Danny's book and what Danny does, because when I was a captain of Men's Central Jail, I lost 3 deputies who were Marines who fought in Afghanistan, and in different periods of time when I was there, 3 years as a captain of Men's Central Jail, I lost 3 of my deputies from suicide, and it's heart-wrenching, the things that they bring along with them from, as you stated, post-traumatic stress syndrome. And so anyway, Danny, thanks for your work.
Thank you, Ralph. I appreciate that.
But we do, one of the tough parts about doing movies is, as you see Alpha's comments here, is, we have to appreciate the craft of some of the actors involved, but not so much of the politics, right? And as Alpha puts out here, at the onset, I'd like to say F you to Benicio del Toro and his love of Che Guevara. I kind of agree with that. Che Guevara is a killer. He killed a lot of people simply because they didn't believe in his politics, which is what is, all this violence going on today just because you don't believe in somebody's politics is what's, it's what I see happening in the U.S. today. So, I guess we can have just a brief discussion. What do you think of all the riots going on in LA? Wait, we'll call it a riot because Webster says a disturbance involving a crowd of people is a riot, right? That's what Webster said, but that's not what Karen Bass or Gavin Newsom says it is. What do you think, Danny?
Riots, let's just look at the jail system. Central Jail has the new side and the old side. And you'd hear riots up in 9,000, it'd be peaceful down in 2,000. So
yeah, well, just because because the whole jail's not on fire, it's still a riot, and
the entire jail system would have to be on fire for the city of Los Angeles to consider it a riot. But it's insane. What I get a kick out of is in my neighborhood. There are several flags being flown right now. It says hate does not make America great. And obviously they're from the left side. And I'm thinking to myself, who's on the right side's hating? Nobody on our side's hating. It's on the other side. It's throwing all the hate out there.
I know, but it's amazing to me, because the whole argument on the National Guards, we don't need them. And, for people who don't understand LA, yes, technically we have the resources to deal with the limited riots that are occurring in LA at great cost, I might add, because I'm looking at LAPD's bill is $20 million so far. We have no idea what the sheriff's is. So yes, technically that is correct. However, the politicians have made it very clear we must fight and resist ICE, and that is one of the reasons why the administration sent the National Guard in, is because they can't trust that local authorities will protect ICE authorities when they're doing their job, right, Ralph? So 2 things can be right at the same time, right?
We can't deny trained eyes like ours and even the public. They see what they see. Unfortunately, we have a legacy media that they want to push out a certain agenda, and we've all seen it, heard it, and when the mayor says there's no violence, don't worry about the governor, his foolish statements. That's why the president, learning from what happened in 2020, especially in Seattle, the great city of love, Seattle, the great CHOP that took over a precinct, and they let it burn and vandalize it. So the president is a person that listens and watches and takes the action that needs to be taken. I'm saddened. I'm saddened for the deputies and police officers, on LAPD and LA County sheriffs, because we see what we see, and sometimes you have to use that force, which overcomes the force that they inflicting on our deputies and police officers. And I think that the George Floyd mentality and the Ferguson effect has affected some of the leadership within the politicians and also law enforcement.
Yeah, they're pretty crazy, and we'll get onto our subject here after my comment here. But let's throw in the CHP there. I watched for an hour as they were pummeled with rocks from up top and chunks of concrete. It's crazy what is going on here in LA. But I was watching Chief McDonald but give comments at the city council. One of the city council says, well, you have to show your love of the city and your loyalty to the city by telling us when ICE tells you when they're happening operations so we can warn the citizens. And Jim McDonald says, well, that would be obstruction of justice. That would be a violation of law. I'm not going to do that. So I go, okay, we'll give Jim a gold star for that answer, but that's how crazy they are. And let's obstruct justice. Of course, the other comment is, well, why don't you go sit in front of one of their vehicles and you go to federal prison instead of telling all of us to do that? Crazy.
Yeah, well, Pat, if I may comment, I mean, I was proud of Jim to make his commentary, what he just stated. And not only that, I like what he said. He goes, check with your attorney, the city attorney, about what, we can't do that. Because we know of two, a sheriff and undersheriff who went to federal prison for obstruction of justice.
Yep. That's exactly right. And these idiots are encouraging that, and they're encouraging violence, and they're encouraging all this stuff. And one guy went to federal prison, or he's getting arrested for fighting. And I said, these politicians are telling people to fight. This guy fights, he goes to federal prison, and they just got a talking point. You need to listen to these idiots. All right. Enough said. You gotta watch Briefing with the Chief as I do these political commentaries. You can see it's a very entertaining discussion when I have guests on, and sometimes I just fly on my own and just give commentary. But hey, today it's a review of The Way of the Gun, and I have to tell you, the very first scene is akin to some politician open their yap and somebody else looking at staring down the barrels of being punched out, right? So let's roll the first scene, the woman. Typical stuff, right? Never hang out with a drunk woman. She's always going to get you in trouble, right? So this scene, you got the red hair guy. I don't know if this was the Flying Tomato, that guy, or not, or just another actor.
He's a pitcher for the Dodgers.
Oh, is he? Well, and he sees somebody sitting on his car, and he's with his girl, and it's our two main characters, Phillippe and am I saying this right? Benicio del Toro, Ralph?
Benicio del Toro.
Benicio del Toro. Ryan Phillippe, and here's their characters. We get introduced to their characters, and they're yelling at these guys, and they're having a conversation. These guys basically play two low-level hoods who are pretty good with guns, and they're getting yelled at by this red-haired guy, like he's going to come challenge two guys. First of all, that's never a good idea, but his girlfriend gets in the act. Now, we have all seen this when drinking with drunk females. They get their boyfriends in spots their boyfriends can't get that out of. And that's what I was thinking when I first saw this scene. I go, oh, my God, he's going to get his butt kicked. But in reality, I think Ryan Phillippe ends up punching her because she's such a pain in the ass. But what'd you think of the scene, Ralph? Typical, a drunk female getting her boyfriend in over her head. And on this one, the unusual twist is they end up punching her instead of punching him.
I mean, you knew what was coming. I mean, even when they were a distance away, and the guy with the red hair, the boyfriend, is yelling, "Hey man, get off there, old man, snap!" And you knew when she started inserting, all her language, you knew it was going to end that way. And the boyfriend didn't have the ganas and the strength to really defend himself and his girlfriend. And I kind of, I hate to see a lady get hit, but you knew it was coming. Now you knew, was it Parker? His name was Parker, right? You knew Parker. Yeah. You knew Parker wasn't going to hit the guy. Actually, if you remember, he used his left hand to push the guy away, and he punched her right in the schnoz. So you kind of knew it was coming.
Well, I just, I mean, Danny, this is how many times we've gone to a call where the girlfriend got the boyfriend in over his head, right? And this happens all the time, right?
It's way too many times. If you go back and you look at the cast of the show, it says the name and then the film name of each actor. And under this actor, it says his real name, and then it says Pee-Whipped. So that just kind of gives you what they thought of him too. But it was kind of poetic justice when she got punched in the nose, and then she gets all pissed off at the husband or her boyfriend or whatever, Pee-Whipped.
Well, then of course the whole crowd jumps on these two guys. I don't think if they'd have knocked him out, the crowd wouldn't have jumped in, but they jumped in when he punched the girl. But yeah. But hey, so the two main characters, let's introduce us to Ryan Phillippe, Parker, and Benicio del Toro as Lombard. And here's the thing: this director is who wrote this story. He wrote the story and he directed it. is reaching back to other things in Hollywood. And so if you know, Parker and Lombaugh were the real names of Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. And so we got this kind of a Western theme thing. And if you look at, like, particularly the last shootout, and we'll talk about it, is when Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid are in Bolivia, which is interesting because one of our guests mentioned Che Guevara. I think that's where he died, in Bolivia, right? The Bolivians got him, right? And our Parker and Lombard, I think that's where they died as well. So you see that last scene. So very, very similar stuff. The best thing in Wikipedia cast Sarah Silverman is, yeah, that's right. She's the gal that gets punched. How poetic, But I think she had her own issues with child abuse or something like that going on. I can't remember the exact allegations against her. And no, it wasn't Silverman. That was Paula Pound, something else. But yeah, her getting punched. That was a good. I don't know. I just enjoyed the scene. I thought it was funny and a good way to introduce our characters. So, but hey, let's show the real Parker and Lombaugh. I got their pics. Is that me, Martine? What is going on? Are you guys hearing it scratching?
Yeah, there's some scratching.
I think it's Ralph because he's using his phone. Maybe if you get earbuds, Ralph.
I'll have to go downstairs and get them if you want to wait a minute.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
We're going to roll, so we're live, but go ahead.
Meanwhile, we have the picture of these guys.
Yeah, so there's Parker and Lombaugh. I think it's Parker is his hat is kind of tilted up, and the Sundance Kid hat is tilted down. I believe that's. But let's show the movie version of these guys too. So we have, there we go, Paul Newman and oh my God, now it's I'm fading on
Robert Redford.
Thank you. I got to hit the back of my head to get those thoughts to come forward again. Yeah, and this was a classic Western, a great Western, and we see a scene where our two main guys are all shut up and they're considering what they're going to do to get out of it, So they kind of matched a great deal. They kind of matched some of the stuff in the movie, but it is a throwback to other movies. And I kind of like that. I mean, I loved Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, the movie. I think it was a classic Western, although I wouldn't say it's my best Western. I think Unforgiven is an awesome Western. Outlaw Josie Wales is an awesome Western. The Searchers with John Wayne.
Yes. Oh my
man,
God.
but you're leaving out the best one of all.
Yeah, The Searchers. It's but I like the whole She Wore a Yellow Ribbon genre. I think that was a John Ford movie, and so I love Westerns as a kid. So I do enjoy that they're reaching back to these to some of these other to history. I mean, Parker and Lombaugh, and reaching back to the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. Let's roll the next scene.
Hey, Pat, can you hear me, Pat?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got to charge my earbuds up a little bit, so give me a few minutes.
Okay. We'll live with the scratching a little bit here, Ralph, while that's going on. And so here's the surrogate. So here, now we know criminals. For all of us, what do we got? Probably over 100 years in law enforcement between the three of us. They make stupid decisions, right? They do stupid things, and they make. So these guys, they were getting out after they get beat up. They're heading out of town, and they're looking for a score. They're trying to think what they're going to do next. Their car breaks down, and they decide they need some money, and they go to a sperm bank. Now it was pretty comic. I did enjoy I didn't have it here, but as they're asking questions about their backgrounds as to give sperm so they can make money. So I thought, God, is this going to be a dark comedy at first? That's what I really thought. And to some degree, had they just added a few more stuff in there, it could have been a pretty good dark comedy, because I thought it was hilarious. Ryan Phillippe's interaction with the guy asking questions at the sperm bank. But they're here, and they overhear this conversation about a girl getting paid $1 million to be a surrogate, and they decide that's going to be their mark. And so I think, this is okay. I'm having trouble following this. This is really stupid. Now, stupid criminals would do this. They would hear a stupid conversation like this and think that somehow they can edge their way in and make some money off this, whether it's hitting their house for some jewelry, because yeah, we have those people that look for where the celebrities live around here, and they do burglaries of their houses. So these guys are just coming up with an idea as they sit in the sperm bank. First of all, Danny, what'd you think of it? It was kind of funny as they were talking about the questionnaire about sperm bank, and then it leads into this really stupid idea.
I kind of got the same thing you were. This is going to be a comedy thing, but I'm also trying to tie it together because I already read about the movie. So how is this a crime movie? And we're talking about this, and I'm trying to get a grasp on what was going on. And finally, once they heard that conversation, then the light clicked on. Oh, okay, I get it now. This is what these fools are going to do.
Right. It would have been, I think, had they done just a few more funny skits there, it would have been a pretty good dark comedy. I don't know, but that's what I saw this heading at. And but I think, what'd you think, Ralph? What'd you think of the whole sperm bank questionnaire? Making money. First of all, that is funny in itself, going to a sperm bank to give donations to make some money. I never heard of that before. And then the whole questionnaire process. He did a pretty good job of making that kind of funny.
You know, I was like Danny. I looked it up and I was reading a little bit first, and then watching the movie itself in that first few scenes. I'm going, man, which direction is it going to go? You know, and but then once they found who the doctor was, I said, oh, these guys are going to do the intel to try to get, because the mindset of those guys are both criminals. They're going to go and try to, coordinate and take this money, this $1 million from this girl, kidnap the girl and stuff. So, I just trying to figure out what direction it was going. Because when you start seeing some scenes, you go, hey, what's the next scene going to be? How's it going to continue going on? So it was kind of interesting. It kind of grew on me.
Yeah. But at the impulsiveness of the decision making of the criminals, sometimes it rolls just like this, right? They think, oh, I can get away with that, and they do stupid stuff, right? I mean, to be quite frank, we catch the stupid ones all the time, right? We don't always catch the smart ones. I don't know. That's your right, Danny. Yeah, that's how you.
Yeah.
I'd like to. Game. Yeah, they play stupid games, win stupid prizes. We always seem to catch the stupid ones, and we have to work harder to catch the smart ones, so to speak. And these guys, just a stupid plan. Of course, they don't do. Here's the other art. They don't do any background check on who this person is. And I mean, when somebody's paying $1 million for a surrogate, you probably want to do a background check on who your mark is.
Yeah.
Right. And
not just a money laundering to the mafia.
Who's the mark? And because when they're paying $1 million, it means they got resources to waste on a surrogate. And you kind of want to know who the mark is, even if it's just a powerful industrialist or somebody that has money that can get the attention of authorities. You kind of want to know who they are, and maybe if you can control it a little bit. But they don't do that. Our heroes don't do that. But in some ways, it kind of, just the whole sperm bank thing kind of made these, I don't want to say likable, but fun characters. Right, Ralph? Yeah. Okay, this will be fun. Are they going to keep this banter all the way through the movie?
Yeah, you're right. Is that here is Parker with his commentary or his statements back to the person interviewing about being gay and fag and all this stuff, and then Benicio del Toro, his responses back. So I kind of liked the banter because it was kind of humorous, but yet it told you something about their mindset as being this criminal. I mean, these guys were, manipulative, and they're challenging, and so it made it interesting as the scenario built on.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say, having done 38 years in law enforcement, that I would have immediately been intimidated by these two guys as criminals. But I mean, maybe they were $1.50, each, but whatever. It's the movies, right?
Hey, Pat, one of the things with my OSS teams, I always say, never underestimate your enemy.
Yeah, I know.
You never know. It could be the tallest guy, the shortest guy, or somebody who's goofy, but they could still be killers,
Yeah. All right, let's roll on with the next scene. This is the kidnapping. So, or not, it's again, this is where it kind of, you're like, well, is this going to be like a comedy or what is this? At first they get the drop on these guys. She's got 2 bodyguards with her. They're armed. Should be raising red flags, right? And they just go to the doctor's office and make their plan on the fly on how they're going to do this. And they get the drop on them, but these guys don't give up. And I did like this scene. That's why it's like, it's almost, is this a comedy? Because all the people are sitting there watching, and eventually they say, this is a robbery, and they all get up and leave, right? They run out. Hey, this is where you're supposed to leave, is what they tell the crowd, right? And then later on in the movie, a similar scene in the bar where all the Mexican gals, boom, they beat feet as soon as they walk in with guns. So I'm thinking, yeah, this is, like I said, it's almost a dark comedy, where had they just added a few more funny scenes, I think that's what they got. Instead of calling it, what they call it, they called it a neo-Western heist action thriller flick. It could have been a dark comedy kind of flick, is the way I see it. But the 2 bodyguards don't give up. They don't drop their guns. They just keep pointing their guns at the surrogate and one of our bad guys, and they're not walking away. This? So now what do you do, right? These guys aren't. And the interesting thing is they decide to just back out away from it, but they're not done. You find out later they're not done, right? And there's 2 guys on the outside that are part of the security detail. Now I don't know, Ralph. I think I've had seen 4 guys, people not giving up easy. I might have just packed it in and looked for an easier mark, but not these guys, right?
No, they were committed. I mean, I think they said later on, this was the big lotto that they're going to get and, change their life, and that they always dreamt of. But I got to tell you, within that building, when you're showing a scene right now, both Benicio del Toro and Ryan, as they did back up, I got to be honest with you, their movement, go, stop, go, and they communicated. Whoever was, advising for that, they did it in kind of in the right way, because one covered, one moved, until they got out. But, the Jeffrey and Obik, they stood strong there. And especially with what really kind of surprised me, Obik right now in that scene, you just saw that picture, pointing the gun at the belly of the girl who's pregnant. We told you something right there, that they were kind of committed in a way to show the suspects that, hey, this may have to take place if you continue pushing the letter to the envelope. So it was a very interesting scene, and then yelling out, "Get the fuck out of here" to all the people, and everybody, you hear all the chairs and tables and everybody getting the hell out of Dodge,
This is a robbery. Get out of here. Yeah, I thought that was funny when I was watching the film, and but you learn, you kind of come, hey, these 2 bodyguards, they realize that there's consequences for failure in their organization, and that's what kind of comes through. Okay, we can't, because either we lose here or we lose, later on. They don't expect any sympathy for, screwing up, right? And so that's what. But here's the thing: they get them to back off, like you said, Ralph. They secrete her, tell her to go back to the doctor's office, and she, of course, uses the time to get out. So this is, there's something we don't know that's going on with her, right? But she makes a pretty good pregnant person as she's walking through these scenes, because she's like in the 8.5 and 9th month, whatever. She does it pretty. What, right, Danny? She does a pretty good job. You've had a couple kids, your wife struggling around in that last month or so, and
she said she never walked like that.
Oh,
but
okay.
to add on to what Ralph said is, when the 2 bad guys, they're hanging out in the parking lot of the building where the doctor's office is. When the security guys drive by, they notice them. They go inside and they call for that second car to show up, and that was interesting there. And then what she said, first of all, I thought these weren't very good bodyguards, because they got the bad guys got the drop on them, but. What she said to the bad guys is, hey, these guys aren't going to quit. They're not going to stop. They will die before they let me go with you, type of attitude. And that part, that she was right. And then throughout the entire movie, you can see that these guys, the technical director did a good job of getting these guys tactically correct, because they did a lot of tactical things that were like, wow.
Yeah, both sides.
Yeah.
Both sides. So, but yeah, it's and then of course you think they're beating feet, but no, they shoot it out, right? They're shooting out with the guys on the outside, and our two security guys who are on the inside decide they're going to go help, and they end up in a shootout with these. But these our guys have now armed themselves with something other than just handguns. I think one of them had a shotgun, if I remember correctly, and
Yeah.
and they do, and she instead of following her instructions, she tries to leave. And that's why I said kidnapping or not, and because it looks like they're not going to get the kidnapping, but she kind of ends up walking their hands. She doesn't want to go to them. She doesn't want to be with them. She's just using this as an opportunity to escape, because you realize that although she's being a surrogate, she's not really loved by, maybe the father, the future father, has some soft feelings for her, but the mother has zero, right? Because she sees her husband developing some feelings for the surrogate here, and she's played by she's kind of a bitch of a mom, Kristen Lehman. She plays Francesca, right?
Yep.
And you see her in one of the opening scenes, and she's not very, and she just didn't want to ruin her body. That's why she wanted a surrogate, right? She probably didn't want his kids, so that was the excuse. And we find out later it's not even his kid, right? It's not, so it's none of their kids. So, and
More
but here
plot
we are.
twist.
Yeah, interesting plot twist. So here's Del Toro has armed himself with something a little bigger than a handgun here, and we got our two security guys are pinned down, our bodyguards pinned down, and she ends up walking out, and she gets kidnapped. So, and of course she's telling them, you guys don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. Of course they don't listen, because this is their big score. I don't know. What'd you think, Ralph? This was a little different plot twist. You think, okay, it's over with. Then it's not over with, and she does actually get kidnapped. And as the movie goes on, a lot of different storylines unfold, right? And so we have a lot of little storylines that got to unfold after this one, right?
Yeah, after the shootout and then the pursuit of Jeffrey and Obig chasing, Park and Lumbaugh, going after him, and then once again tactics by the two criminals, Del Toro and Ryan, backing into them, and he could have shot Jeffrey, and I was wondering why didn't you shoot him, in the face, or this way you eliminate another two guys, but they didn't, which could have changed the whole story around, but. And the plot changes because the girl is giving little hints to both of them as they drive when they kidnap her that, hey, you don't know what you're dealing with, and and she didn't come out and say it because about maybe the mafia, maybe laundering and stuff like that. So she wanted to have a child and probably planned to keep the money anyway without maybe thinking about giving up the child either. So it was very interesting. It was very interesting conversations in that car as they're getting away with her in the back seat.
And of course, the baby's kicking during this whole time, which is, so I mean, our two hardened criminals, you can see them already softening a little bit, right? They're, this is their big score. They're willing to do whatever it takes. Of course, the baby's got to be healthy, because that's the valuable piece of this, right? I think they understand that. But I think they automatically start softening, even though they're yelling at her, So anyway, so we have these relationships that are now going to unfold after they've kidnapped the mother and her baby, and then we're going to find out who all the bad guys are. And so the interesting thing about a lot of movies is all of these scenes are, one, they build the plot line, but they introduce all the different characters. And if you notice that, the first hours or half hours interesting all the main characters and what their background is, and you're seeing all of these characters. We've been through who the surrogate is, who the wife and the husband are, that they're clearly connected. We see our two bodyguards. They're the ones that survived the shootout, so they're gonna have a little longevity in the movie, right? And so you end up seeing all of these different folks, And eventually we see some of the other guys like James Caan jumping in here. And but let's talk about the mom, Juliette Lewis. So I think she does a pretty good job in this movie. This is the surrogate, right? And she's actually related to one of the other actors, a character actor who shows up later in the movie. It's his daughter in real life. I don't know if you know that.
Didn't know that.
So Joffrey Lewis.
Godfrey Lewis, who played in all the Every Which Way But Loose movies with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, this is his daughter in real life, and so it's interesting connection, right? So I don't know. I just like the way they did this. They got him, and he played kind of a broken down old hitman that gets hired by James Caan, and he shows up later in the movie. But we gotta see who the other guy is. This is the doctor, and let's roll that scene. And he is. Let's see here. He's Dr. Painter. So Dr. Alan Painter. And we find out later that he's actually the son. This is such a weird twist. He's the son of the surrogate father. So the father who's having the baby, this is his son.
Yeah, Cheddick.
Say it again.
Cheddick. He plays Cheddick. The father's right. Cheddick, his last name.
Right, and we find out later this is his son. He did something wrong in Baltimore, I guess. So now he's a gynecologist out there, and he's helping with this. And she had her meeting with him before she was kidnapped. Now she's having problems, and our two heroes, or two kidnappers, however we want to call them, now contact him, tell him what's going on, and this you don't know everything, right? So somehow this doctor's motivated to do this. I would think, why is this doctor going to go along with it? And we find out later there's a very important reason why he's going to go along with meeting with the kidnappers to help the surrogate mother out here, because there's a lot closer relationship than we know. But so here we are. So this is probably the last final character beyond James Caan, main character anyways, because Caan's is first you think it's going to be a cameo, but then he actually gets a little more involved in the movie too. So Dr. Parker, yeah, weird twist, right? He's actually related to the surrogates, the surrogate, the father of the child, right? Or alleged father of the child, I should say. This is why I think this could have been a little better of a dark comedy had they just added a little more comedic stuff, right, Danny?
Yeah. Excuse me. This was too many plot twists, but it was fun to watch. I get a kick out of this doctor. I mean, he's sitting at his house. It's probably drinking a little shot of whiskey or something. Gets a phone call, and he carried a lot of stuff in that little black bag, including a gun.
Yeah. Which tells you what doctor's gonna. He carried his gun in there. Of course they. Oh, and this was funny. See Lombard or Benicio, he looks in it, he doesn't see it, but Phillippe does see it, and the words are unspoken, but he's disappointed in his partner, right?
Yeah.
That he didn't find the gun, right? That he didn't think to look. But even still, I didn't know how he was going to take out two armed guys even by himself. But
and then I got a kick out of the doctor after he got his eyebrow opened up, how he's just sitting there nonchalantly sewing itself back up again.
Yes. This ain't your average doctor. Of course, think about it, right? We would probably all do that if we're doctors. Like if you're out and, okay, I don't have any options. I got to do this myself if I got the equipment, right? You know how to do it, right?
Just carry some super glue.
Some super glue, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. I think they probably do this in the field, combat medics and stuff like that. And they probably do this, because you ain't got a doctor hanging out on every corner, right?
Last year when I got my knee replaced, I had inside stitches and no stitches on the outside. It was all glued together. And recently I had some skin cancer taken off my arm, and it was the same thing. Inside stitches to hold the inside skin together, but the outside skin was glued down. And I'm still picking glue off my arm.
Why did they do that? Does it,
It's just how they're doing things now. It's less scarring. There's a scar on my knee. It's been a year now, and it's kind of hard to see.
Yeah, Danny, it's not going to end your modeling career to have a couple scars. That's just
now,
going to say.
Now, since we're going there, for me, skin cancer is a workers' comp issue. So can I
Ah.
count my scars from all the skin cancer remove surgeries as battle wounds?
Is that? I wonder if that's. Fortunately for me, knock on wood, no skin cancer. But but you're a little more light skinned than I am. So
Yeah.
did it? Was it? Oh, okay. I'm getting. I probably don't have to go to. But has this been something that started during your career and then you had to apply for it, or is this something that came out after retirement?
It started probably the last 7 years of my career.
Ah, yeah.
And then probably about the last year and a half is when I finally reported it and got it covered.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? Hey, this is a show that hopefully we have a lot of cops watching. If you are out there and you're suffering, dealing with skin cancer, and you worked a lot of time in the field, contact a lawyer. So get it covered by workman's comp, right? Right, Ralph? Let's, they need to, because if you're out in the field and you're deployed all the time, I say my first half of my career was in the field, and second half of my career was, paper cuts and blurry eyes from reading stuff as an
You
administrator.
hurt your back picking up a paperclip, right?
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah.
Pat and Danny, it's really interesting. I think back when we came on the job, they didn't give us a baseball cap. They didn't give us in a war bag,
No.
SP 50. When I became a chief, and learned at Westminster what we give in war bag as a baseball cap, and SP, and also suntan lotion to try to mitigate, the
Yeah.
cancer and stuff like that. And I actually, I admire the fact that a lot of departments are doing that right now. And did I like, the fact that sometimes the baseball cap, it did say, the agency and stuff, but sometimes it didn't look good. But I don't, I think it's protective because of the, the recognition of that it does cause cancer. I look at myself. I got a divot, like on my top of my head that somebody teed off on me. Teeing off on it with a Callaway driver. And I got a pretty good deep cut in that. And so I don't blame it. I think it's a good thing to teach the young officers, because Danny, probably your arms, because of being in short sleeve shirt, working the north end up there, Palmdale, a lot of strong sun during the summertime, and you get burnt, and you didn't put any suntan lotion because it was never given to us, So I think it's a good thing they're doing that right now.
Yeah, in 85 to 89, I worked in East LA, and knew a lot of the chippies that worked out of then it was a Montebello office. And one day I was over there talking to them, and at their back door going out, they had racks of sunscreen and suntan lotion. And this was in the 80s. The Highway Patrol had that. When I retired, we still didn't have that. Although for a couple of years when I was up in the Antelope Valley, the last couple of years I was there, I did wear a campaign hat and the straw campaign hats, just for protection. And just to throw on a note, my brother died of skin cancer. So.
Oh, he did. Well, sorry to hear that.
My condolences.
So our scene here, though, they're beginning to understand who they're dealing with. The doctor explains, that these guys are connected, as you see in the movie. You mean union busting, Chaddix, whatever. So they now know, okay, they're dealing with some serious folks here, and they're trying to figure out how much money they have, right? So they still think they're going to do that. They're going to go through with it no matter what. Our heroes, and actually, if you think back on Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, right? It was getting hot for them in the U.S. and they went down to Bolivia or South America. They figured they'll stay down there, and they just need to make a big score every now and then to ride the high life, and so there is some, and in my, when you listen to that, I go, well, that seems, when they went down to Bolivia, that to me that was a pipe dream that they were going to be able to just get away with it down there. Eventually, someone was going to catch these guys. They should have just got out of the business. Is what they should have done. But no, I guess they can't. They can't change their stripes, and same with these guys. These guys, our characters, can't change their stripes. But now they figure they're in deep, but they're not going to back out, right, Ralph? This is their big score. They're going to do that. They're going to push ahead. But that's that criminal thinking that makes it easy for us to get the dumb ones, right?
Yeah, I mean, they were committed. I mean, in both, philosophically with Ryan and also Benicio del Toro, I mean, was their opportunity to step into a next level of life, and you know, that it's really interesting. If I remember correctly, with Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, there was a part in the movie when I think Sundance was thinking maybe Butch may take him out and stuff like that. And I think there was a part in the movie that Ryan thought maybe Benicio Toro also might have taken him out. They kind of alluded a little bit toward that. There was a kind of a rhythm in the movie. And I just felt that because Benicio del Toro plays a great part in a lot of movies. And, I thought maybe he may go back and take out Ryan, Parker, to be on his own and take the girl out too and say, fuck it, let me just get the money. I'm going to run out myself. But it didn't evolve to that. But I was thinking kind of different angles and stuff, But I also thought it was very interesting that, Benicio del Toro meeting alone with, Jimmy Kahn and the negotiating and, trying to, the word they use, adjudicate, and I thought that was very interesting. I thought it was a very interesting part. And I'm saying, wow, I'm thinking if he's a hitman, Jimmy Kahn, why don't you just take the fucking guy out? Excuse my language. Just take the guy out, this way you don't have to worry. You got one guy out, take him out, and then you worry about the other guy, So it was kind of interesting, though.
Well, you do see that there's a trust between the two. Our two bad guys, right? Parker and Lombard. There's trust and respect and commitment. There's something else that came up to me, Danny, is sometimes we're dealing with these crooks, whether they're gangsters and stuff, and there's this whole pride thing, right?
Oh yeah,
I can't back down. Even though the odds are, you see a lot of times with gangsters, right? The bravado, right? I can't back down. There's pride.
These guys, once they kidnapped her and beat up the doctor, they realize that, okay, we're in too deep now. We just got to keep going, moving in whatever direction we can think of at any given time, because the direction changes all the time. And the meeting with James Caan, when he came in to bail the two security guys out of jail, you got the message there that he's a bag man, he's a negotiator, he's not really an assassin, but he has assassins on his, or hitmen in his back pocket. So he wasn't there to whack Del Toro, but he was there to negotiate a settlement. That's
if he could,
which at the end we know how the settlement would be ended. Both of the bad guys would be dead. So
yeah, they might pay him just to get her back safely, but they're gonna pay something else down the road. They'll get paid in lead down the road, as they say. Yeah, I same thing, Ralph. There's trust between the two, integrity. Commitment between the two, but also that bravado that doesn't allow them to back off, right?
No, the bravado, but then, like you said, Pat, they were committed to each other, Parker and Lombard, and they know they needed each other in a tactical move, whatever they're going to get the money or not, and I just think that a lot of gang members, they all in, I don't care if it's criminals, I don't care if it's Italian mafia, whatever it is, they're all in on it, just like you see the movie Donnie Brasco, and when they all go downstairs, they're all in on it, chopping the guy's body up, when they kill him and stuff, so, but I know are you going on a break yet, something like that?
No, we got 5 minutes.
So if I can, I got to share with you my contact with Jimmy Kahn in 2013.
All right, hold on. I want to show the Jimmy Kahn scene. I got a James Caan scene here. Let's roll that, and we'll get your comments, and we'll go to break. Okay?
Yep.
Or you can talk while we're showing the scene. So he shows up. Here he is. He's getting our failed bodyguards out of jail, right? And now Danny, I have to say, in my opinion, he was probably for the organization previously a hit guy. And he graduated to bagman. He doesn't have to do the dirty work, right? Or
exactly.
As much
That's how I read into it.
Yeah. And these two guys, they realize they screwed up, our two bodyguards, and they're how do I get out of this? And but one of them brings up, hey, you know what? She was saved and she escaped, so she's running. This isn't just about these two guys. She didn't do her thing, which made it harder for us to keep her safe or keep her from being kidnapped. If she'd have done what she was told, she wouldn't have been kidnapped. So she was obviously, well, running isn't the right. She was waddling away is probably the right word to say it, as they showed in the film. All right, hey, let's hear your comments about Jimmy Kahn.
So when I was the pitches detention commander up there, I'm the highest ranking person. So the security shack goes, "Hey, commander, we got a guy here from ABC, David. I can't remember his last name. He wants to meet with you." He comes up. David comes up, meets me. He goes, "Hey, I'd like to film this. I understand I have to speak to you. You have to sign off." And I said, "Who's in?" I said, "Who's in the show for ABC?" He goes, "Jimmy Kahn." I go, "Ho, time out. I will sign off on this, but you got to promise me." He goes, "What's that?" I go, "I got to meet Jimmy Kahn." He goes, "You got it." So in August, I can't remember what the exact date, 2013, they're filming, and I walk from my office up near the one facility, I forget, South facility, not South facility, one of the facilities what they closed down, and I'm waiting. And my bald head is out in the sun. It's 105 degrees, right? So I go to Dave, "Where is he?" And all he goes, "He's coming." So also here comes his van, shows up, right? And the electric door opens up in his van. You know, typical New York. I walk up to the van and the door opens up. I go, "Hey, you keep me waiting?" And Mr. Khan looks at me and goes, I go, "Hey, I didn't stutter. You keep me waiting." He goes, "You're not from LA. Oh, bingo." He goes, get in the van." I get in the van right here. It's two Brooklyn guys talking to each other, and they always call me Ralphie. I'm calling him Jimmy. And I say, "Hey, it's an honor to meet you, Mr. Khan." He goes, no, Jimmy." So I say, "Hey, listen, my wife's cousin did the special effects, Joe Lombardi, when you got shot up in the causeway." He goes on for a couple of minutes. He goes, "That son of a bitch, he put all the explosives on me. My friggin' testicles got all blown up. I wanted to kill Joe," but he meant that in a very fun way. So I say, "Hey, listen, can I get a photo?" And he goes, "Absolutely, Ralphie." We step outside, we get a photo. I say, "Hey, listen, my mother-in-law, she loves you and stuff." He goes, "Here you are telling me your mother loves me." He goes, "Back in the day, here I am, I'm banging all these young girls. Now I got people saying my grandmother loves you." I mean, we had a great time, him and I, alone as two Brooklyn boys, kind of cutting it up. And I said, the last thing I said to him, "It's an honor to meet you." I said, "Jimmy, you're the only Jewish guy that wants to be an Italian." He goes, You're effing right, Ralphie."
Well, I met his brother, but it was not a good circumstances. He was addicted and he was patroning the ladies in West Hollywood, so to speak. But yeah, I'm glad. That's a great story, Ralph. Great story. But here he is. He's our with lack of he's the senior citizen of the crime family here, right? Still working, still hustling, and you find out he has connections to our he ends up being the father of the surrogate, right? Which is kind of a weird plot twist too, right? And I don't know if he knows that at this point, but he figured, because I would think he would have been acting differently and knew it at this point, but but here he is. He's the guy coming in and saying, "Hey, you guys are screwed up," and these guys say, "Hey, we'll do what we have to do to resolve this, right? To make it better." What do you think of the James Caan there, Danny?
I like that. James Caan, one, he's a great actor, so I've seen him in a lot of movies. But yeah, the way he played his role there was what you'd expect from a negotiator. He'd go in, talk a lot of tough crap, and then take care of the business that he needed to take care of. On top of that, you're right, he probably was a hitman at one time, and that's probably why he has a notebook full of people he can just reach down into and get. He's just a negotiator because he's too old to do all the running and gunning stuff that he did when he was in his 20s and 30s, probably. Yeah, he played a really good part there. And
right,
I'm trying to get to the part where we jump back and forth from the doctor to James Caan. I'm still trying to figure out what happened in Baltimore, but we'll get to that in the next hour.
Yeah, I don't think they actually really clarified what he did in Baltimore, but but I think on James Caan though, I just of course you mentioned he was in The Godfather, but he was in Brian's Song. I believe he played it. That was a great part that he played there. He was in Rollerball, right? Or Rollerball, right? He played Jonathan, right? In that movie. Yeah, and
he was an elf too.
He was in Elf, the movie.
He played the father of Will Ferrell.
So he's and he's been in some war movies. Let me pull him up here. Let's see what his and he had a very long career. I mean, I was watching a series that was about gangsters in Havana, and he played a tough guy there, where he was I forget the name of the series, but he gets blown up, of course. And then later on in his career, you end up being the character actor, right? And versus the leading guy. But let's see, he was in El Dorado. That's right, he was in El Dorado with John Wayne. Remember that one?
Dallas. His name is Dallas, I think.
And he played, let's see, yeah, and I like that one too. But he was kind of a young guy at that time. He was still Journey with Shiloh, the Rain People, but I think obviously James Caan. But I do remember when he played Brian Piccolo in Brian's Song. I thought he did an excellent job in that one. And although he was, it was a tearjerker almost. You remember guys would, this bromance movie between two football players, and of course one of them. And I think Brian Piccolo paid for Penn State. I think is.
I think it was Kansas. I don't know. No, not Kansas. God, no, because Gale Sayers, I think, played for Kansas.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
All right, okay. We are at our break time. So, Martine, I hope you're queued up and we are ready to go. Stick around for a second hour.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all: movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis, official scoops from Geekosity magazine, reviews, and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield, where they're always talking nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all: movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis, official scoops from Geekosity magazine, reviews, and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield, where they're always talking nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee with the Chief. We are reviewing the movie The Way of the Gun with retired law enforcement officers Danny Coon and Ralph Ornelas, who is still, we're waiting to come back on. Yes, Alpha, A Bridge Too Far. That was also a James Caan movie. And, thank you for chiming in there. Hi, all. Yes, hey, Gambit, good morning to you as well. Oh, I don't know where you're at. It's morning for me here. I don't know where you at. Hey, Patrick, Ralph, and Danny, hi to all. And Alpha did say, hey, when he was in the military, they just had to wear a long sleeve. They could not wear sunscreen because it gave away where they were at, because you could smell sunscreen. So he's probably right. If you're traipsing through the forest or the jungle somewhere, you can't really wear sunscreen because the enemy can smell it and figure out where you're at. Yeah. little different for us in law enforcement. They kind of know where we're at. We've got this car with lights and sirens and uniforms that everybody gets to see, right? So we're a big moving target. All right. So hey, welcome back, guys. Let's roll with the next scene. Let's see. Well, I want to make sure I got everything. How does James Caan get there? Okay. Yeah, here's the okay. So there were some issues with. Oh, Ralph, maybe you can try your earbuds. There was some issues. One of the things. So James Caan goes from talking to these two guys, trying to figure out where these guys are at, and suddenly he shows up. Of course, suddenly he shows up by himself at the phone booth where these guys are at. It doesn't really talk about it. They're trying to make contact, but how does he get there? Suddenly, he's in Mexico and having a conversation. And I thought, okay, that's a little unrealistic that he would get there so quickly, right? That's how I felt about it. But it was a good interaction between him and Lombaugh, our character here, who's doing the negotiation. And let's see, what were the other things? There's so many side plots. I said the wife and the bodyguards, as you can tell that they're developing. I don't want to say they're developing feelings for her, but they like her, right? That she's kind of like them. That's kind of the way I saw it, because she agreed to do this $1 million. And she doesn't. It doesn't sound like she had a pristine background either. So she's a little bit like them. She's making money, but she's realizing she's in a little deep here. And then we found out that Robin and the doctor have a relationship. So all of these intersecting relationships make it kind of interesting, but also everybody's got a little different motivation, right? You're thinking the doctor's motivated by money, he's doing the surrogate, but actually he's got a relationship with Robin, so there's a different motivation going on there. Then you find out he's actually related to the dad, which really makes it kind of complicated, and the dad who thinks he's the father and ends up being the grandpa. It's just kind of weird. And so there's just that's why I think this could have been a great comedy had they just wrote it a little different and played it out a little different. But the next scene I did was I called it conflict between crooks, right? So let's roll with that scene. It's a little bit of longer scene. And they're all kind of crooks here, right? So conflict. I guess when I say this conflict between crooks, right? They're all kind of related here. And here's this is the surrogate, the dad, right? And here's James Caan, so they're related, right? And they're in the same organization. And I believe this conversation is by giving them the money they want 15 million. It puts the organization at risk, and that's the conversation they're trying to have with who this guy who thinks he's going to be a dad here, and he's telling him, hey, this ain't worth it, kind of thing, and this is a bad idea. But I guess he has the authority to say, well, we're going to do it anyways, right? And so this is the negotiation in an organization. Ralph, I don't see any mobster giving up $15 million at all. They're going to want to solve this another way. I mean, you know better than me. You're from New York. They're not going to give up $15 million. I don't. And they ain't got $15 million sitting in a bank account. They spend it as fast as they get it. That's my impression. But they're going to find another way to handle it. These real gangsters, right? They're not going to give the $15 million. What do you think?
If they were real can you guys hear me? Number one.
Yeah.
If they were real gangsters, they're not going to pay $15 million. I'll tell you, they would completely execute these people, and they'll make a believe they're going to pay them. They execute them and move on with life. But it regards to the movie, the guy who plays the Chadwick, who's expecting to get the child later on, I'm surprised he's connected, and James Caan is the device to solidify or solve this problem. It doesn't seem realistic to me that would take place, but it's part of the movie. That's what movies are about. But I think it's kind of interesting, though. Jeffrey, though, and Chadwick's wife, Kristen Lehman, they got an affair, and he's, as we say back east, he's laying his azich to her, and and it develops later on what happens to her, So it's kind of interesting, And but I like all the twists and turns. That's what makes movies interesting when you and these writers and how they create it, and how they write it out. So it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun.
Well, the writer of this wrote the Usual Suspects. Remember that movie? I'm trying to think of the main lead. He's the guy who got in trouble for sexual harassment stuff with guys. I can't think of his name now, but that one had a lot of twists and turns. You didn't know who in the zoo on that one either. And this was kind of written in a little bit of the same way. Is there was always these little subplots, who's connected to who in that, and Kevin Spacey ultimately turns out in that movie to be, Kaiser's also the bad guy. But you wouldn't know that, right? That one was betrayals and double cross, different people and paybacks, and in this one you see a lot of the same kind of thing. You don't know who's connected to who, and here's James Caan now having a conversation with the doctor, right? So all these guys every one of them's got skeletons in their background, right? This is a conflict between crooks. And that is, and this is who they have to trust, right? I think the two that have the most trust towards each other are Lambaugh and Parker, Danny, right? That all these other guys is.
Yeah, all the other guys are mafiosos. They just want to go out. No trust there, but you can tell the other guys, the bad guys, which I call them, is they've got something built up because they're a little bit more skilled, I guess.
What do they call that? The anti-hero. So they're nice guys to like, but they're really not nice guys, Yeah. And they have these characteristics where they're loyal to each other and they're committed to each other. They won't betray each other, but beyond that, they're still stone cold killers, right?
Yeah, it's the water's dirty no matter where you look in this movie. So.
And when you find out all the relationships, that the fact that that Khan ends up, his daughter's at risk, he knows his daughter's at risk, there'd be a little more emotion going on here. But so he's getting the information from the doctor here, and I think this is where he tells him, hey, this is his kid. I don't know if there's this point it comes out or when it comes out, but. Kind of seems like they don't know if they want to make the usual. Yeah, I would agree. But this was, remember, this guy wanted to do his own film, and even though he had great success with The Usual Suspects, I guess the studios wouldn't just give him artistic license to do whatever he wanted. They wanted to control whatever the outcome was, and so he wrote this himself and finally got the funding for it and did it. So this was, he didn't have all those systems and controls in place. And it's interesting when you do the research, he purposely looked at all the things that the studios don't like, and he made sure that he didn't focus, on those things. But he wanted to squeeze, for lack of a better, his personality in this thing. And you see it come out that there is a linkage to The Usual Suspects, but also the violence in this thing. There's a Sam Peckinpah kind of flavor to it, right? Where there's a lot of shooting. And did you ever see the great movie for Sam Peckinpah was it's the one with Ernest Borgnine, and it's The Wild Bunch. Did you ever see that movie where they end up in a Mexican town shooting it out with the Mexican army?
I haven't seen that.
The Wild Bunch. Look it up. It's I got to look it up because you guys got to see it. If you guys haven't seen it, it's a classic. It's not really a crime drama. Well, I guess it is maybe a crime drama, but let's see The Wild Bunch. I forget. I can see. William Holden is the main character.
Yeah, I've heard of the movie, just never seen it.
Oh man, it's one of my favorite movies. I wouldn't say it's, but they have a great shootout scene at the end that a lot of criticism. It came out in 1969. So Danny, now you and your wife, even though it's not homework for a podcast, have to watch The Wild Bunch. She'll probably leave the room,
Well, if there's gunplay in it, she will be loving it. So.
There's a lot of gratuitous violence in it.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of. I mean, William Holden is a great actor. Ernest Borgnine is in it. You know, let me tell you who else in this show because
Yeah. Now, Pat, you got my wife is the type of person that'll sit down and watch a baseball game with me, and then watch a movie like We Were Soldiers or something. You know?
well, We Were Soldiers is a fantastic movie too. There's a little bit of bloodshed there, and
Great movie.
Just a wee bit.
yeah, this one, the Wild Bunch has William Holden in it, Ernest Borgnine, Robert Ryan, Edmund O'Brien, Warren Oates. You remember the great actor Warren Oates, and
Yep.
Ben Johnson was in it. You know, and
The cowboy.
yeah. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's a great movie. You'll enjoy it. Get a cigar, Ralph. You know, whiskey, and enjoy it. I know you'll like it, and then you'll have to send me a note whether you like it or not.
Hey, can I throw something in? You mentioned Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson played the bad guy, initial bad guy in the movie Shane.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. A very young Ben Johnson. Yes.
Young Ben Johnson. Yeah.
And I wonder if he started as a stunt guy, but you know, I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of those guys in the Western started as stunt guys, but
a righteous cowboy.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Let's roll with the next scene. I think the federales. You know, okay. So this clearly they're you know. So Ralph, in real life, they're not going to be able to go across the border, just across the border, without the cartels knowing, right? They're going to be in their business, just because the cartels, they control the border, right? So this is, even in 2000, you're not going to be able to do this without somebody knowing what's going on, right? In
especially
Mexico.
it's dealing with money.
Especially when it's dealing with money, right? And so here they are. They end up, they're meeting. They're trying to do this negotiation, right? And obviously it goes bad, and she ends up calling the federales, right? And they end up coming. This was why I talked about that scene, and they actually get away with the money and her after this. But the federales come, and they end up having to have a shootout, right? So this is, what do you think of this scene, Ralph?
You know, first of all, I'd step back a little before this scene is when she calls the federales, and then she gets the shotgun after it was rigged up. Anybody coming through the door, and she shoots through it, letting both of them know. Because I think she felt not Parker, but Lombard was going to do something against her, and especially that he said to Parker, "Hey, I go in and get my jacket." Well, meanwhile, the jacket was on the outside mirror. Mm-hmm. You know, so it that was very interesting, you know, and that's where I go back to. I thought maybe Lombard was setting up Parker again, you know, that I don't know if it, you know, I'm not totally true, but that kind of came to my mind. But then you move forward, and here's the federales there. And it's literally going to say a Mexican standoff there between, you know, Obik and Jeffrey and the federales. Meanwhile, Lombard and Parker are taking high ground. And, you know, Lombard's got the scope on everybody, and he's Swiss cheesing some of them apart, you know, and it's amazing. Yeah, I didn't really know that Godfrey Lewis, who played the guy helping out James Caan, I didn't realize in a minute he got hit until later on.
Right. Until later on.
He got hit through the side, but some of it was unbelievable that they got away when they headed further south. And you mentioned before, Pat, or maybe Danny mentioned, how quickly, you know, James Caan got southbound and met them up at the hacienda and the prostitutes and stuff like that. But yeah, it was kind of, you know, to me, it was kind of like quirky a little bit, but it's part of entertainment.
Yeah, it's that's the part, what they call it. Well, that's the Hollywood part. You just got to go along with it, right? Because it's Hollywood, and right, and they didn't surrender though. You're right. She was shooting them, but I also thought, hey, she just assumed they just leave, right? Because she's not really a killer, right? She just wants them to leave. Leave me alone. I need to get out of here. I need to get away from all of you people. And but you know, they're not going to let it go, right, Danny? They're not going to let it go. So they do take the high ground, and they do end up shooting at the federales, and they get this shootout here. And our our two main guys, our bodyguards, are going to shoot out with him. But the thing about Godfrey Lewis, right? He plays Abner. If you remember when James Caan was looking for somebody to do the job, this guy he's sitting in his probably trailer, reflecting on his failed life as a hitman, or whatever he was for the mafia, and he's wants to kill himself, and then he gets the phone call. But even before that, you see James Caan. He's got a whole list of names, and he's at the very bottom. So he's his last choice to call, and all these other guys have said no, they're not going to do it. And since this guy's willing to kill himself anyways, he'll do anything, probably to feel relevant and to be back in the game. But so what do you think of that? He was
Did you
when you get to
notice
65 years old and you realize that being a hitman or a bagman isn't worked out, in your life, what do you do with yourself, right?
you're sitting there on the couch with a drink in front of you, and you put your 2-inch up to the side of your head, and you pull the trigger, and it goes click. And he clicked it like 3 times. He goes, well, this gun's not working. The phone's ringing. He gets rid of that gun, reaches into his bag and gets another one. Puts it up to his head, and he says, the hell with it. I'm going to answer the phone. That was, to me, that was hilarious.
Right. That's, it's okay.
That was the comment.
I'm a loser. I can't even kill myself properly. Right. Is
Load
kind
your
of
gun
what
if you're
comes.
going to do it.
And
You
then
You know what I
Go
thought was
ahead.
interesting, guys, is that he had all these guns on the table, put them in a bag, spun the bag around, and then put his
Yeah.
hand and pulled it through. I mean, I'm going, oh my God, I mean, woo.
different kind of Russian roulette, huh? So instead of spilling the cylinder, you're spinning the bag around to see what gun comes out.
That was a worse attempt suicide scene than what you saw in the Deer Hunter.
But I think So how do you show that a guy's at the end of his rope and he's a loser? Yeah, funny, but actually, we
Prove
all
the
got
point.
the message. We got the message, right? And then
Definitely
of
prove the
course
point.
he proved a point, and then of course he's hanging out outside this motel for James Caan, and he can't even talk to James Caan because he doesn't have single, right? So it's just a comedy of failures, right? And that's
Yep.
that's what the movie maker is trying to show. This is a second-rate hitman who can't kill himself, right? Can't even communicate with his boss, right? Because he doesn't have the right equipment there, because he doesn't have any single. You think that he'd be ready for that. Anyway, so and it's the thing about it is he is related to our main actress in the movie, which I thought was kind of interesting. And it's interesting because of the intersecting character relationships too, that you have two of our actors who are actually related on the movie too. So obviously the movie maker wanted that. See, I know Parker is a name for Butch Cassidy, but when you say Parker going up against the mob, I think that the character from Richard Stark's novel and films, Richard Stark's. Yeah, I don't know that one, Alpha. So you have to throw out a movie there, and that I think we might know, and then we'll comment. But they purposely named it right after Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and and this guy seems to be throwing back to some of the old history of movie making that was made in the past. So, but we've seen that in films before where they kind of
Hey,
link to the past. Go ahead, Ralph.
hey, Pat, I'd like to make a comment. I want to thank Alpha for his service to our country, because it sounds like from his chat that he was in the
Yes.
he was in the military. And I also just want to say something to 11 Alpha. He mentioned about these, long sleeves, this way they can't smell. Well, my dad was in Korea, and if you go to Washington, D.C., see the Korean War Veterans Memorial with the Parkers on, and I took my dad there for the grand opening back in '95 of August. All the men around that who fought in Vietnam, and my dad was in the 7th Infantry, 32nd Regiment, got wounded, lost his right lung. They all commented, nobody wore the Parkers. And the reason why, to go along with 11 Alpha, was because the Parkers made noise when they were walking during patrols. So they buried them. They never wore them. And so my dad, and all these military guys that he met there didn't know. They all commented the same thing. They said, I wish they would have talked to some people who actually fought and not just by some other, other people maybe, they didn't wear the Parkers. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, that is interesting. But I've been to that war memorial. It is it's stunning sculpture, or whatever piece of art.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's they look like they're coming out of I don't know, rice paddy or something, whatever they're supposed to be in there. And but yeah, Korea was a brutal conflict. Most people don't know
Two-year
it.
war. They lost 52,000 soldiers.
Yeah, I met a guy who was I think he was the 24th Rifle Division. I was doing a project, and I was in uniform. He was the head of one of the Teamsters unions for transit, and he sat down and he told me the story about how he was in a a division in Japan, and the North Korean attacked, and they were the closest division. They were understrength, undertrained, and they were sent in and told to just slow them down. He says, I lost so many of my friends, and we never won a battle. We got our asses kicked, and their job was just to slow the Koreans down until they can get troops in at Busan, and created the Busan perimeter. And then MacArthur launched his Seaborn, and it was, and I go, wow, I'll have to look that up, and I looked it up, and sure enough, their general got captured. General Dean got captured. He ended up fighting. He took out a tank. The general did. He picked up a gun and he was fighting right along with his troops, and he ended up getting captured by the North Koreans. It was really very interesting story. And one of the first task force that got there from his division, Task Force Smith, got wiped out. It was just, and then I met another guy. I was working on another project at Transit, and he had been at the Chosun Reservoir with the First Marine Division. Another brutal fight. So they're winning, they're pushing the North Koreans, and then the Chinese end, and they get surrounded at the Chosun Reservoir, and it's like 20 below, literally 20 below. And they don't have their summer gear because they're thinking it's going to be over with. And they got surrounded, and they had to fight their way to another port to get out. They had Task Force Smith, which was a pulled together Army division, got wiped out. Some of their people managed to sneak back to the Marine lines, but yeah, another brutal fight, and most people don't know about it. Yes, was he in the?
If I can make another comment to you about this, and 11 Alpha and everybody on this screen on this show, you want to read an unbelievable book about the Marines, the Chosun Reservoir. It's called On Desperate Ground, and it revealed what my dad said to me, Ralphie. We never fought the North Koreans. We fought the Chinese. And if you read the book, The Desperate Ground, the Marines, they said it was like ants coming over, all these young Chinese. It was nonstop. And some of them had their feet wrapped up, the Chinese clothes. And he said, and in the book, they said they even think that some of them were just drugged, and to continue on, not to feel the cold. But if you get a chance to read that book, 11 Alpha, do it, because those Marines were amazing on the Chosun Reservoir, what they went through.
Yeah, it's there's so many cool stories. There's the Gloucester Battalion. So this is the Brits who got cut off, and they fought till their last bullet. They were a artillery thing, and the glorious Gloucesters is what they call them. And it was one of those things where everybody was so worn out from World War II, we didn't hear about a lot of these things. It wasn't publicized, and then we went right into Vietnam, and so a lot of the sacrifices made by those men, people really don't know about. It's really cool. It's cool history. It's interesting history, and a lot of sacrifice. Well, let's roll on. So basically our surrogate has escaped, and she's taken to a whorehouse, I guess, for lack of a better term, where she's going to give birth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we got our doctor there, and we got one of our bodyguards there. Now the other bodyguard, he gets captured by Parker and Lambaugh, gets tortured. Where are they going? Of course, he doesn't know, because but it just so he meets a bad end, right? Yeah, his test for his face was 31st injury. Yeah, the story, Alpha. Yeah, it's very interesting stuff, right? And they end up in, I was looking at kind of, it looks like just a Mexican town, border town, And this is where this particular town reminded me, when you see the set, of course, of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and you realize it's probably a set somewhere, maybe on Universal or something. But here's Abner, our guy, meets with James Caan, and James Caan's realized he's hit. He said, "Hey, I followed him. They're in there. The doctor's there, right?" And James Caan's going to muster up his forces to go and get him. Yeah, Task Force Faith was the 31st Infantry Division, 71th. It was the east side of the reservoir. Had a particularly tragic fate. Yes, that's right. Task Force Faith.
That was my dad.
Was it? Was he in Task Force Faith?
Yeah, my dad
Yeah.
was on the east side, opposite where the Marines were.
Okay, right. They got and because they were cobbling together units to fight back. They expected it to be over with, and then the Chinese entered the war. Yeah, all right. We'll have to hear. That's Military Mondays. That's one of the other developers does the military stuff, but just cool history, and it's worth checking it out. And so Abner here is dying, and it's interesting. He finally tells James Caan, "Just get out of here. I want to die by myself," right? But yeah, so
puts his head down like he's dead. Then he lifts his head back up.
I know. That's why I think this whole dark comedy. We did the movie Sharky's Machine, my last one we did. And if you
love
remember,
that movie.
There's his partner's a black guy. I'm forgetting what his character's name was, Arch, and Arch gets shot by the ghost, right? And Sharky's talking to Arch. And Sharky goes, "Well, go get that guy." Okay, he goes to leave, and then he says something else, right? Then he looks back. Then so it was kind of a comedic thing there too. But and the same kind of dynamic happens here in this movie. So there's, again, that's why I think this could have been a better dark comedy had they added a little more, a few more punchlines to this stuff, right? But hey, the guy's finally dying, which is exactly what he wanted. But he's going out in another way, right? It ain't by his hand. It's
not as quickly either.
Not as quickly, probably a little more painful, but he's getting his choice.
It's like almost James Caan was like, okay, this died. Let me get the hell out of here, because he wanted to move on to the next chapter, what he's going to do. And he looked at him, okay, like just drop dead already. He thought he was dead, and all of a sudden he starts telling, shakes his hand, and he said, okay, you can just leave me alone,
Yeah. Well, and how remember, he was last on the list, so this wasn't James Caan's first choice to do this. So he was just the only one available, or the only one willing to do it. And here's the guy that runs the brothel. And we got this is the funny. I don't know if it shows us in this scene, but our two guys, our two heroes, enter into the brothel, and right there's a bar full of prostitutes, right? This is the funny part. They immediately get up and leave, right? Unlike I guess the contrast is all the white people in the upscale doctor's office are sitting in the cafe just watching and need to get a cue to leave. All the prostitutes in the brothel, right away, they see two guys, heavily armed guys, come in, and they beat feet and they get the heck out of there. I thought that was a pretty funny scene. Danny, what do you think?
That was, yeah. My wife and I, we both laughed at that scene because they
Right.
went in there, they said something in Spanish, and boom, everybody was going to think they said something like "vámonos" or something like that. And boom. It was funny.
But hey, when you're but it is Mexico. They have a lot of violence along the border there, so they get it. They don't want to get caught in the crossfire. But that's the difference between people who deal with violence every day, Ralph, and people who are clueless and don't have to deal with it, right?
Yeah, I mean, going back on another scene before that was before all the prostitutes in the bar was when Robin knocked on the door to get help, and I think the name of the actress, Irene Santiago, she answered the door and she goes, "Get out of here, puta!" Get out of this prostitute, and she didn't want no part of her that interfering with her business. Yeah, so that, and then I just thought, like, when I started seeing the shooting scene, which are probably coming up here, but I'll say it anyway. It kind of reminded me of John Wick. I mean,
yeah.
All the rounds going off and everybody shooting at each other and stuff, and so hey, listen, I love shoot 'em ups. It's kind of fun, and I always like to look at all the tactics they take and how the cover and movement, and so it's kind of interesting to see all that, and it's entertainment.
Yeah. And so Gambit's got a comment. Yeah, so let's see. 39% of police officers feel that. We're talking probably suicidal post-traumatic stress. First Blood in 92, Rambo shows up with post-traumatic stress in a town that ironically is called Hope. So I didn't catch, I don't remember the Hope part of that, but that would fit with the movie. But yeah, so I mean, so here she is, she's having the baby. Of course, you knew this was going to happen, right? She's that pregnant. Somewhere during the course of this, she was gonna give birth, and of course, it can't just be a natural birth. It has to be a cesarean, right? That's because hey, what would the movie and what would this movie be without every complication coming in, right? And here's our other hero that we find out has a relationship with the father's wife, and he ends up shooting the brothel owner just by mistake. Of course, that's to be expected, right? So, what do you think of this scene, Ralph? Going down to the brothel to give birth. Of course, it's going to be a cesarean, not a natural birth, which just complicates the hell out of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it in just straight entertainment. The fact that they did get into the room where the doctor was, where Robin is, and Jeffrey is, and I kind of knew that the guy that's running the brothel, somehow he was going to get dusted, which he did by Jeffrey. But I thought it was really interesting. Once again, the magic gun in the doctor's bag, and he shoots him in the neck. And that's kind of I just thought it was kind of comical that the doctor had the gun and the huevos to take Jeffrey out. And if Jeffrey's a real true hitman, he wouldn't get. I mean, how can you be surprised? You be prepared for something that's going to because it's been a violent whole. The last few scenes, violence, and he's been dealing with violence. Not be prepared for that.
Well, and leading up to this, we find out that the doctor is actually the father.
Yep.
That the treatments to do intravitreal fertilization did not work. The dad is actually the grandpa because that's his son. It's his doctor, and it sounds like they had relationships to produce this baby, not science, right? So he has feelings. He has feelings for Robin here, right? And that's his real motivation, to protect the gal that he has feelings for and to make sure his son or his daughter, whoever it's going to be, survive, right, Danny? So that's we're starting to find out. The storylines are unfolding for all the different people, and that's what we find out. And that's what he's really there for: keep her safe and keep his baby safe, right?
Yeah, I think the feelings were mutual between Robin and the doctor. They, some of the comments that were made in between all the shooting it kind of went that way. But what I get a kick out of again is first of all the magical gun, and that was a great shot right in the throat. I replayed that. But who carries 2 IV bags and an IV stand in your little black bag?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and he's and I hear you, and but it's so I remember when she was walking, she was bleeding, right, and you could see she was all pale, and you go, okay, there's something wrong with her, right? And then they come out that she's bleeding, we got to give birth, and then of course she's got the IV, right, and so he's got to deliver the baby through cesarean, stop the bleeding, and he's giving her IVs. So I don't know what he did in Baltimore, but he certainly proved himself to be a pretty good doctor in this situation. Just solving all these problems. But hey, you know what? The baby's got to survive, right? And the mom's got to survive. You know that. And ultimately our 2 anti-heroes, that's what they think they're gonna get their money as best they can, but they're not interested in killing the baby and the mom. So but leading up to that scene where his birth, if you saw all the army of the bad guys coming in, you saw the courtyard there, Ralph. I want you to think back to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, right? So they've shot it out with the police in the Bolivian town. The police get a hold of a military unit that's nearby, And when you look at the courtyard, very similar courtyard where they got the fountain in the middle, right? And they're both shot up and they're behind closed doors. In fact, let's show the Butch Cassidy and the Son and the movie pic there again, Martine, just so people can see it. If you got it available, there it is. So they're all shot up already. They shot it out with the federales down, or whatever they call them down in Bolivia, the police. And they don't realize the military is lining up and waiting for them to come into that same courtyard. Okay, you can take it down. And this is where our two characters are. This is where the similarities beyond the names come in the movie making. Now they're going to go out and they're going to shoot it out with a bunch of people. Obviously, Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. It's more like, you hear fuego, which is fire. So they're all lined up and they kill them right away. There's no surviving. They're not going to get in a lengthy shootout there with the Bolivian military. But just the scene is set very similar, and our two guys go out and they shoot it out with the gangster army, for lack of a better word. And let's roll that scene, because that's a very long scene that we have to get through. It's all right. So the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid one, yeah, let's roll that one, and maybe we'll see it. So maybe we'll see they'll show the courtyard again. Well, I'm sure they will. So of course they didn't have trucks back when Butch Cassidy and Sundance. But here's our guys, and so one of the funny scenes that you see here is when Parker goes to jump into the fountain.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
He's got him impaled with a bottle.
And if you've ever been to, that's not unusual, right? So that was, and
Very common.
Very common to have people just break their bottles there, right? And it's not cleaned up, and he jumps in it, and the fountain, of course, is dry. But they got their lengthy shootout going on, and these guys are toast. But this is where all of our bad guys. This is the part that's unbelievable. All of our bad guys, pretty much, most of them, just have these 5-shot revolvers. Ralph, it's just okay. Who is a technical advisor on this? I mean, you already know you're dealing with a couple of really bad guys who have automatics and have used shotguns and stuff like that. You're not going to come to this unless James Caan didn't want any of his people to survive this. I don't understand it myself, but I tell the others, how hard is it to hit somebody 25 yards with a 5-shot 2-inch?
Well, I think.
Well, for everybody else, not you, of course. Everybody else.
I think some of the bad guys did have some semi-automatic pistols, but it was interesting that James Caan only shot a 38 or whatever, a revolver, but hey, listen, man, like, once again I say that's part of movies, and and these guys, and then here's Ryan's got a bag full of shells for his shotgun. I don't know how many clips Benicio del Toro had. I mean, he might have had a whole bunch of them hidden up his ass or something like that. I mean, but I mean, he kept on pulling them out all the time, And I mean, hey, it's movies. I love that stuff. It's kind of fun. But you look at this guy, and they're shooting and hitting the wall and stuff, just missing them. And but going back to Ryan Parker jumping into the fountain. I mean, I thought it was comical that he gets impaled with a big piece of glass in his arm, and hey, you knew they were going to die. But the part that would interest me was that I was surprised that James Caan didn't dust him at the end, but I think he knew they were going to die. Plus, I think he might have been out of drop pouches for the 38 rounds.
Drop pouches, yes.
Now you gotta think of the thought process here. Okay, James Caan and the other dude, they're old dudes. I mean, they're older than us. Actually, they're dead now, but they were old dudes. So the thought process is, first of all, that at one time or another they were hitmen. What's the best weapon to use? For close up killing people is a revolver, because there's no shells and no casings or anything. Okay, so that's the thought. One of the thought process. The other one is since they're old in the movie, they're old. They just didn't buy into the new semi-auto loader stuff that didn't get hit even law enforcement until the mid '80s. So maybe that was the thought process there. But I did love it. Just
one of our
shooting it out
guys,
with the 2-inch.
Oh, I know. I won't go into the story where I ended up having a partner. All he had was 2-inch, and we were taking down some shooters who did a drive-by. And anyway, so I told this story with Ralph, right? And my MS-13 guy gets shot up, and we happen to be driving by in an unmarked car that everybody knows is a police car, right? And my partner's in a suit, and he's just got his 5-shot, because we would go do warrants, and he'd put his vest on, and then he'd get his 686 out, and then when he was done, he would put that in the trunk and just have this 5-shot. And sure enough, we run across this drive-by where this local gang had shot a MS-13. There was some back and forth between these two gangs, and we know where the guys are at in Hollywood. We know this gang hangs out. So as soon as LAPD gets there, because it's their area, we beat feet over to this gang's area, and sure enough, we find the car, and they got a rifle. And the guy pulls over before I can get West Hollywood there, and because Mario had thrown this guy had thrown the bubble on the top, I wanted him to wait till we get more people rolling, because we were a good 15 minutes from West Hollywood, right? And I didn't trust that LAPD would get there fast, but we're committed now. Pull the guy over, and I look over. My partner's got a 2-inch, so we're dealing with the guys with rifle. He's got a 2-inch. I got my 9, and I'm thinking, okay, I guess this is on me, right? And then they get out, and I had to tell my partner, hey, tell him in Spanish to get back in the car. And so we get him back in the car. Fortunately, actually our guys beat him there. Our guys beat him there, then LAPD showed up. But I'm like, 2-inch is just for backup. It's not for carrying if you're gonna get busy, is the way I see it. Yes, that's a 2-inch special. And we had another comment from one of our guys who said this is probably more consistent with the Wild Bunch, the courtyard area. Yeah, I would agree with that. And the whole shootout where there's a lot of blood, and you can see it with this character. And it was a throwback to Sam Peckinpah and the Wild Bunch. I agree with that. But also to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, just the banter back and forth, and them going out against odds to shoot it out with them. I feel both of those are true, I think. What do you think, Ralph? I mean, you haven't seen the Wild Bunch. You're going to have to now watch it now, because it's been.
Yeah, I'm going to have to watch it because I like the actors, Ernest Borgnine, William Holden, and Robert Ryan. Yeah, I'll have to watch it, but the person who commented is probably right, but it does have the alignment also, what you mentioned as the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. Hey, listen, these are the things that movies that people enjoy. Some of us lived violence, some of us experienced it. Sometimes you just want to put some things in the back burner, not to remember it, but this is part of life. And I always say this when I was a DI at the academy for a number of years. Prepare your mind for some of the violence you're going to see. And I always tell, and I'm being serious right now, that's why it's very important to have good, close friends and family, and having faith, because you are going to see some of the worst things in life when you put that badge on your chest and that right hand up, the same oath of office as the President of the United States to enforce the laws, because it is a honorable position, but you are going to get exposed to a lot that most people in society doesn't see what we see.
Yeah, I was the other thing. The only thing I'll add is pay attention to your tactics and live by your tactics, because they'll save your life. Is the way I see it. So we got Parker here. He sees some of the money. He's going to try and get away with some of that money, even though he's all shot up. And in the end, we know that they don't escape. Right. Here he is. He's got his hands on one of the bags of money, and Del Toro or Lombaugh is trying to get him out there. And of course, here he is. James Caan gets the drop on our guy, and with his 5-shot. So that just drives me crazy. Who's the technical advisor on this? But hey, whatever. So, what do you think of the scene, Danny?
I want to back up to a scene earlier, which I thought was also almost as funny as the kid jumping into the well. And this was some good tactics. So we can get down on technical advisor, but this was a good tactical move. One of the bad guys was walking down the hall, and he looks at his, basically covering the corners and everything like that, and saw one of James Caan's guys' foot. So he shot him right in the foot.
Yes.
That was good. Yeah, and I kind of think what Ralph was talking about was probably did run out of ammo. James Caan did when he came out there, and that's why he didn't take out Del Toro. So
Now you do see him actually reloading right after.
he's reloaded it several times.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
dumping, and then he's reloading with each shell.
each shell. I know. You know, I won't name the agency, but I went back east for a graduation for somebody who got at the academy, and I went back in uniform because there was a relationship there, and they were still using dump pouches. I couldn't believe it, and this was probably 88. Couldn't believe it. I was shocked, And I wouldn't say that we were super advanced. We were using speedy loaders. I mean, although I was pretty quick with my speedy loaders, I think y'all are. When you go through an academy, and all of your shooting days, I don't know how many, at least 2 weeks of shooting, 8 hours a day, and with speedy loaders, you get pretty fast.
You get good at it.
You get good at it. And when we were first, I don't remember. I know Ralph, you probably remember this. I don't know if you remember, Danny, but you used to have to shoot every month when I first started. Remember that? You had to qualify every month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're, even you go into the range, you're putting, what was it, 50 rounds or whatever it is. You're using your speedy loaders every month, and you're staying proficient with them. And and we lose that skill set.
I actually really enjoyed, every month, because I loved going up to Biscaloo's, and you kind of reunite with a bunch of people come from North County and around, and it was a kind of a good networking and find out where everybody's at, what they're doing a little bit, because it's a great environment for me. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. It gave me that competitiveness of shooting well.
Right. Yeah. I loved revolver better than I liked an automatic, but and we did have a comment, Alfred. That comment was actually said by Ralph. It's just the old school, throwback to old school guys using the revolvers, as that's more stylistic, I guess. But that's the way you say it. But people using what they're comfortable with, I guess. But if I'm going to go to, now that I know what I know, if I'm going to go to a shootout, I'm going to have something more than a 5-shot, right? Because I've actually qualified with my 5-shot, and it ain't easy, right? You got to slow your shooting down, and you got to reload more often, and you got to avoid pulling the trigger because it's much more challenging.
Count your rounds.
Yeah. It's
two things. The best part about going up to BC after they remodeled it the first time in the 80s was you got to see my pretty face there in one of the pictures. I was one of the. It was my patrol school class that they took pictures of and posted them inside the range, and I was in one of them. The other side of it is, you're talking about Alpha 11 Alpha just mentioned it, the stylistic part. It's when you go to the roundup, there'll be plenty of guys shooting, the younger retirees shooting with their autoloaders. But you get up to the old guys, you would be amazed how many are still using 5-shots. And we're only shooting maybe 5 yards, 10 yards. But they're with their 5-shot, and you shoot 10 rounds. So it's easy for them to shoot 5 rounds, reload it, and there's no time on it. So
Right.
But there's a lot of the older guys, older than us, that are still using 5-shots or revolvers.
Well, if I was, the automatics are always heavy too. I didn't like carrying that heavy automatic because it's just a heavy gun. If you're trying to conceal it, get something a little more compact. It's probably better, right? But hey, if I'm going to a shootout, I'm taking the thing with the mostest bullets that I can, right? And but hey, let's roll. We'll roll the last scene, and then we'll do some final comments. And I wanted to get the last scene because. So our guys have had their shootout. They're both down for the count. They're still alert, but they're dying. We can see here's Lombaugh, and we're going to see Parker here pretty soon. James Caan, they got the mom and the baby, and the doctor's alive. James Caan's alive. The mom's alive, and the baby's alive, right? And this ends up being Grandpa is James Caan because he ends up being related to the surrogate mom, right? And so that's his grandchild, right? And the doctor is the father of the child. And our original guy who thought he was a dad, I got to do all this linkage so everybody understands. thought he is actually a grandpa also because the doctor's his son. So ultimately, who's going to kill their grandchild or the woman who gave birth to their grandchild? Nobody, right? Even the coldest mobster's not going to do that, right? And so, and that ends up being the linkage that we didn't really know about, and then we find out later that the one of our bodyguards is sleeping with the original guy who thought he was the father of the baby. And here's the scene right here. She says she's pregnant, but she's actually probably pregnant with the bodyguard's child, who, since the bodyguard's black, that's going to be another surprise, another plot twist, and part of the dark comedy. But it's, one of the things that I can't remember who said it, was Parker said it or Lombaugh. What are you going to tell God? What are you going to tell God? So they know they're dying, and they say, what are you going to tell God when you get there, right? That's pretty presumptuous that they're going up there to have that conversation. I would think automatically they'd be going somewhere else. But I don't know. What do you think of the movie, Ralph? What do you think of the final scene?
I kind of figured it, that the lady who played Chadwick's wife, she was going to reveal that at the end. But I also, it was kind of like it was like a peace accord between James Caan and Benicio del Toro and Parker. And there's a comment that James Caan and Benicio del Toro said to each other. I can't remember what the words were, but like, I'll see you when I see you, or something like that, And it kind of like was me. It meant like, okay, well, we made it. We'll see you in the afterlife, So I guess they made peace with each other. I don't know if you can use that term, but they did. But hey, listen, it was an enjoyable movie, and it kind of, I never seen it before, so I like seeing movies like that. Thank you, Pat, for including me, and you get a chance to see Danny Boy. So it was fun.
Yeah, what do you think, Danny? Final scene. What do you think they're going to say to God, if anything, if they even get that invitation?
If you remember, let's go back to the scene where Parker got all the guns in the duffel bags, and they went out to the van, and Del Toro was already out there, and Parker had said to Del Toro that he was going to execute this dude. And as he's getting ready to pull the trigger, he heard the guy saying the Lord's Prayer, and and then he stopped, and I think that's where that whole little spiritual thing came in. And then he said it again, or he reiterated to the part of what are you going to tell God? So
yeah, I really enjoyed the movie, and one of the things is this partnership and the loyalty stay towards the end, right? Because these guys are getting hit and in the shooting, and they don't abandon each other. They don't run away. One guy's down, the other guy's shooting. They hang in there all the way to the end. This is actually when you get a chance to watch the Wild Bunch, same thing happens. Two of their gang goes down. The leader of the gang, William Holden, he says, all right, he's going to pay the Mexicans back who are shooting him up, and then his partner Ernest Borgnine, they all stay right till the end. They go down all together, and you see that with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. So it was a fun movie. I'm glad I just kind of picked it out of the blue, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's see. Earlier, The Way with the Gun, Parker was holding on to what he called a Colt MK5 Series 70 government. They had some good guns. And earlier comment 686. That's a lot of because that's a 357 if I remember correctly, and I think a lot of guys carried that. We just had to carry 38 rounds. And I have a 2.5-inch 686 that I carried as a detective that I really liked. Nice, smooth action. Not a lot of kick. Heavy enough gun that you didn't get much of a kick, and I was pretty good with that one. I actually liked it better than my duty weapon. What do they call it? Model 15s or whatever. What do we carry as 38s?
Model 15s.
Model 15
with Packmeyer grips.
Yeah, so I mean, I liked my 686 2.5-inch that I carried as a detective. I really didn't want to give it up, but hey, we all had to go to the autoloaders, the Beretta, and I learned to really like my Italian friend too. That's right. So he's my closest Italian friend, Ralph. I have to tell you, he's been with me longer than ever.
I understand that.
I bought mine. I don't know if you guys bought yours. I ended up buying mine. I said, I'll take it just because I carried it for 20 years, right?
Yeah,
Although I
well,
don't really...
who can pass up a gun for $150 or whatever it was?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't that expensive. Like I bought my 38 too.
Oh, did you? Yeah, I didn't buy mine, and then I regretted it. I wish I had, but yeah. All right. Hey,
And,
guys, we're at the end. Well, go ahead. Final comment?
The more we talk about this movie, this whole 2 hours, I'm realizing that it was a comedy because we've laughed through the whole thing.
Yeah. I
It's-
think it doesn't address it as that, but I think it could have had, they just juiced it up a little more on the comedic stuff. I think it would have been, I think it would have been a better movie. They made it for like 8.5, and I think it opened. They ended up making like 14 million on it. So in the movie worlds, that's a loss, right? But so
the
it got
opening
mixed
weekend was
reviews.
2 million.
But hey, it's an afternoon getting ready. It's a good show to just watch in an afternoon, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah. All right, guys, thank you for joining me. If you want to stick around for debrief, we are done for the day. Martine, we are done. You can take it away.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Thank you.